The spear in his hands felt like a natural extension of his own body. Then, as he drove the weapon forward with every ounce of strength he possessed, the spear pierced completely through the enchanted stone. The shock on Rattan's face and those of his companions was absolutely priceless. Even the examiners couldn't conceal their astonishment, delighted by what they'd just witnessed. Rangus hadn't merely scratched the stone's surface, he had driven straight through it entirely. Zeke immediately praised him enthusiastically, while Rangus himself could hardly believe what he'd accomplished. Even after the examiner officially declared that he had passed, Rangus still asked in disbelief whether he'd truly succeeded. Zeke smiled warmly, wrapped an arm around his shoulder and confirmed it absolutely. Overwhelmed with pure joy, Rangus nearly cried as he embraced Zeke tightly, shouting repeatedly that he'd done it, that he'd actually passed the examination. Rattan's group, however, refused to accept the reality before them. They dismissed it as pure luck, though Rattan himself remained silent, trembling with barely contained rage. He couldn't accept that, exactly as Zeke had predicted, Rangus was genuinely stronger than them, and that his result was far superior. The examiner then announced that the testing phase had officially concluded. Afterward, he declared the entrance ceremony would commence shortly. Zeke immediately questioned whether the examination was truly finished. Rangus confirmed it appeared so, but added there would likely be additional evaluations once they entered the dragon's nest itself. Soon, a group of imposing figures emerged from a darkened hallway. When they stepped into the light, the examiner announced that the head of the Eldragon family would now deliver a speech to congratulate those who had passed. The moment Zeke saw the man, he asked who the person with the cold, intimidating expression was. Rangus, visibly nervous, replied that it was the family head himself. "That's the family head," Zeke said incredulously. "Why does he look like that? He's not even smiling. He looks colder than ice." Rangus immediately covered Zeke's mouth, whispering urgently that it would be wisest if he remained quiet, repeating his desperate plea for silence. Zeke reluctantly nodded. When he examined the assembled group again, he observed that these individuals represented the current power structure of the Eldragon family. Some had reached 7-star level, while others were 6-star practitioners. To Zeke, their collective strength was genuinely impressive, especially since the current family head, Zeke Eldragon, was an 8-star level powerhouse. 1,000 years ago, only a handful of people had ever achieved that remarkable level. Still, Zeke wasn't certain how many such warriors existed in this current era. "I don't like this family head," Zeke muttered under his breath. But before he could elaborate further, Rangus frantically tried to silence him again. Zeke sighed internally, thinking he never expected this intimidating man to be his father in this lifetime. A dark, fiery aura radiated menacingly from Balsa's body, making the entire atmosphere feel oppressively heavy. The examiner quickly ordered everyone to maintain absolute silence because Master Balsa was about to address them. When Balsa stepped forward, he uttered only a few terse words. They must all strive to become the flesh and blood of the Eldragon family. As he spoke, the terrifying pressure of his aura spread throughout the hall like a suffocating blanket. Zeke remained completely unaffected, but many examinees trembled in genuine fear, some struggling to breathe as their bodies froze under the immense spiritual pressure. Zeke noticed that even Rangus was visibly affected. He couldn't believe how easily everyone around him was overwhelmed by the family head's mere presence. More than that, Zeke could sense an intense, deeply rooted hatred concealed within Balsa's aura. He didn't understand the reason behind such darkness, but even so, he couldn't bring himself to like the man who was supposedly his biological father. When Balsa turned away dismissively, another man stepped forward and immediately drew everyone's attention. He had striking blonde hair and cheerfully thanked Balsa for his brief words. He then explained that Master Balsa held high expectations for them all, and that just like his master, he would also keep his own speech mercifully short. As Zeke wondered who this more approachable man was, the speaker simply instructed everyone to train diligently and grow progressively stronger. "That's it," one of the examiners muttered in surprise. The blonde man smiled warmly and joked that people who worried excessively about trivial matters went bald prematurely, so he wouldn't burden them with lengthy speeches. Zeke couldn't understand what was fundamentally wrong with this family's leadership, but at least the oppressive atmosphere in the hall had lightened considerably. The examiner then announced that new students would now be assigned to their dormitories. Everyone whose number was called must proceed there immediately. Zeke asked whether they wouldn't all be staying in the same dormitory, and Rangus explained there were 4 separate halls: East, West, South, and North. Every student accepted into the academy was permitted to reside in one of those 4 residential halls. When Zeke's number was called, he stood up and waved goodbye to Rangus casually. He was assigned to the East Hall. As he walked through the winding corridors, he commented that much had transformed in this place over the past millennium. After finally locating his designated room, he acknowledged he must have gotten lost since it had taken him considerable time to arrive, and his roommate had probably arrived first. When he opened the door, he cheerfully greeted his new roommate and apologized for his tardiness. He explained that from today onward they'd be sharing the same living space, but to his genuine surprise and delight, his new roommate turned out to be none other than Rangus himself. Zeke couldn't help but laugh heartily, declaring it seemed like fate kept deliberately linking them together. He asked if there was anything else scheduled for the remainder of the day, and Rangus confirmed their formal training would commence tomorrow morning. "Is that so?" Zeke said casually, prompting Rangus to question whether he hadn't listened to the examiner's earlier detailed explanation. Zeke admitted frankly that he hadn't paid attention on purpose. Rangus sighed wearily and suggested they should rest early since intensive training would begin the following day. As Zeke gazed contemplatively out the window at the night sky, he reflected on his original plan to escape from the Eldragon family and explore the world independently. But after what he'd discovered about the enchanted stone with its remarkable regenerative properties and the sophisticated healing potions, he realized he'd encountered many fascinating developments during the examination. If he genuinely wanted to comprehend all the dramatic changes that had occurred over the past 1,000 years, he reasoned, then perhaps remaining with the Eldragon family temporarily wouldn't be such an unfavorable decision after all. A full month passed at the academy, and their training regimen continued to grow increasingly demanding. Holding massive dumbbells in both hands during an exhausting exercise, the instructor explained that the dragon's breath technique he was teaching them represented one of the most crucial methods ever created by the 15th Eldragon family head. After reminding them sternly that they had to master the technique under any environmental condition, the instructor's sharp attention was drawn to a few struggling students who required additional correction.